On the radar with the CES 17 Storm Team.
Hello and welcome to this episode of On the Radar. I am meteorologist Matthew Huddleston in the driver's seat for a change. Joined today by Chief Meteorologist Wes Hohenstein. And Wes, a lot to cover in this final episode of 2025.
Yeah, it's Christmas week. It has been a wild last few months in our weather world. You know, earlier on this summer, we were heading for the hottest everything. And then all of a sudden, August comes around and the temperatures drop, the pattern changes. We've gotten a break from our AC bill. But boy, we have had, four minor snow events already.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
What a wild year it has been, and it is wrapping up, and I don't know if we're ready for 2026, but it's coming
ready or not,
no matter
here it
what.
comes. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the end of the year, Christmas, New Year's, also talking about as winter arrives towards the end of this month, what that brings typically, getting towards as well the recap of 2025 weather in central North Carolina, and finishing it up with a look ahead towards 2026 too. But we're going to start with taking a look at the typical Christmas around North Carolina, going all the way back to 1887 when records began. The warmest it's ever been is 75 degrees. The coldest, just 4 degrees on the morning of 1983. Just over 2 inches of rain in 1914. Twice technically getting white Christmases in Raleigh, 1947 and 2010. And of course, last year, a balmy 66.
Yeah, there's a lot of exceptions to that snow on Christmas Day that we'll get into. But, I mean, we have everything on Christmas Day. I remember over the years having to layer up, and I remember being able to wear shorts. I mean, we get such a wide array of weather around here. For kids at home and for snow lovers, we unfortunately have had so very few snow opportunities over the years on the 25th of December. And just last year, I mean, it was close to 70 degrees if you think about it, 66. A lot of people in central North Carolina have migrated here from the north, and they're used to cold, snowy Christmases, and we just don't have it around here.
Yeah, it doesn't happen too often around here. Unfortunately, taking a look at how often it has happened over the course of history, 1939 and 1966 saw 1 inch of snow on the ground. It melted very quickly back in 1939. Still some snow on the ground on 1966 in that Christmas morning, and of course several traces around here, but the days that it has snowed on Christmas Day officially, just 1947 and 2010, as we talked about, 0.4 inches on both of those.
Yeah, so if you think about a traditional white Christmas, you go to bed Christmas Eve, you wake up with a fresh blanket of snow Christmas morning. That kind of technically has only happened once, and that would be in that 1966 occasion. So 1939, it snowed on Christmas Eve, but it melted fast. It wasn't pretty, anything like that. 1966, I mean, that's been a long time ago.
It has been.
We had an inch of snow on Christmas Eve, and you woke up Christmas morning, and there was new snow on the ground. That's really the only traditional white Christmas that we've ever had. The most recent one that I think everyone remembers, that 0.4 back in 2010, that didn't start until late Christmas night. So you get through the whole day Christmas without any snow, and then after 11 o'clock Christmas
about
night?
11 or 11:30. Most of us missed it, unfortunately.
So that's a technicality that we had a white Christmas, but really only once in, what do we have, about 150 years of good records back to 1887, just shy of that. Only once in that time have we had Christmas snow when we wake up in the morning.
And of course, this is focusing on Raleigh itself. As far as the entire area, even lesser odds down towards the Sandhills, the Triangle, just 2% of the time, 0% this year. Unfortunately, it's going to be far too warm and far too dry as well. But down towards Fayetteville and the Sandhills, an average of just 1% of the time, so an even lower chance on any given year down there.
Yeah, think about 1% or 2%. That's 1 out of 100 or 2 out of 100. And for the Triangle, 2 out of 100 is 1 out of 50. So once every 50 years, we get snow on Christmas. So essentially, that's kind of once in everyone's lifetime here in central North Carolina that we will see a white Christmas. And you would think the way things were going this year, I mean, technically 4 snow events. Sure, 3 of them were traces, but 4 events in central North Carolina already this year. You would think this is going to be the year. And no, it's just way too warm. But it's just really hard to do. I mean, it's hard to produce snow. It's really hard to get snow around here in central North Carolina, and to get it to go on Christmas Day is darn near impossible.
Yeah, but even though it hasn't happened too often around here, it has happened back in 2010, seeing Greensboro, Charlotte, Raleigh, and Fayetteville all having some snow on the ground. Now, much of this did fall on the 26th. This was the satellite from December 27th, but as far as how much snow did fall during that event over the course of 2 days combined, nearly 8 to 10 inches across the triangle, even heavier amounts back towards the mountains, many places seeing a foot plus back there, and even down towards the coast, they got a trace from that event.
Yeah, it was a good snow event. We just missed having that white Christmas, though. I mean, that satellite loop you showed, I mean, that's essentially a snapshot from space. Those weren't clouds. Those were clear skies, and that was widespread, fairly deep snow for our area across most of the state. And it happened on a holiday break, so, kids didn't get out of school, but everyone got to kind of enjoy that snow, which around here isn't always the case, because a lot of times the roads are a mess and we've got accidents and headaches and bad drivers and all that. This was a good old-fashioned, good holiday snow that a lot of people got to go out and enjoy, build snowmen and sled in. And it's been, It's been 16 years ago almost. So it's been a long time since we've had a good holiday snow like that.
And I think everyone around here, even though that snow causes problems, we want to see at least one good snow a year. And if it can happen on Christmas Day, even better.
Right. I kind of compare it to the state fair. Like, state fair comes around and you're ready for it, but by the time the end is here, you're ready for it to be over. And I think everyone feels that way. They want that one good snow, and okay, by the time it's over, now I'm ready for spring. That's kind of the way snow works around here, I feel.
And you mentioned about seeing a few traces so far this year, and even though we're not going to have a white Christmas in 2025, still some chances we see snow as we head towards that new year. The overall chances are increasing towards January and February. But one more thing about white Christmas, not just here in central North Carolina, but the most recent one in the mountains, 2020, down towards the coast. They saw it last century, but even for places like Wilmington, 1989, seeing 13 inches of snow on the ground on Christmas morning. And then it kind of melted away, as is the case around here so often, too. Right.
I feel bad for Elizabeth City, 1948.
I know, it's been a while.
That one in Asheville, 2020, that was during the pandemic. And it was a really cold spell. And we drove up to the mountains the day after Christmas and actually skied for a couple days at Sugar and Beach. But Asheville had some snow that year around Christmas, but it was part of a really, really cold spell. I don't remember historical events very well, but I remember how cold that one was, and that there was some good snow up in the mountains.
Yeah, and I know every once in a while we get a very cold Arctic air mass working in. You think, is this going to last all winter long? And sometimes that's the only one. It really depends on any given winter.
Yeah, and remember, around here, January is typically our coldest month. You have our temperature fluctuations throughout the year. July is our hottest month. January is on average our coldest month. And so it's no surprise that January is also our most popular time to get snow. Over the last 30 years, when snow falls around central North Carolina, specifically the Triangle, half of it happens in January. So the fact that we had those events in December. December is our third snowiest month, only 15%, so not a good odds in December, but it was busy in December, and I think we all know January the coldest, January the snowiest around here.
Yeah, and of course, most of the times we start to see the precipitation coming. It's just the question of, is the cold air going to be in place as the moisture starts to push into? Yeah,
and you living down on the coast for years, you know that usually the thing that busts our snow forecast is when a little warm nose of air comes in from over the ocean and kind of just ruins everything in the mid levels. And you got to have cold air the whole column, but sometimes this little warm nose comes in from the ocean and just ruins everything, turns all that snow snow to a slushy mess or just a rain or some kind of sleet, and that's not pretty at all. But January is our make or break month for snow around here.
And of course, as we head towards January, the first day of the new year, taking a look back at the historical numbers across Raleigh, seeing the warmest day ever for the first day of a new year. Back in 2022, just 3 years ago, 79 degrees, the coldest 1918. A wet day back in 1989, 1.5 inches of snow actually on New Year's Day in 1962. And last year, 57 degrees for the high and 43 for the low.
Yeah, I remember that 2022, just a few years ago. I mean, we were close to 80 degrees to start the year. You know, the coldest month of the year, it's a new year, and boom, all of a sudden we're starting with close to 80 degrees. And if I'm not mistaken, 2022 ended up being one of, for the whole year for the Triangle, it ended up being one of the warmest years on record. And it started off with a bang, 80 degrees.
That might have been the year, too. I think that February was like in the 80s a lot of days. It was either 2022 or 2023, but either way, several warm days setting up, even in the wintertime. It's not too unheard of around here.
Yeah, and I think that was also the year that, talking about how warm February was, that the yellow pine pollen started really early because it was so warm so early. Not only confused all the humans, but also all the plants. They started throwing out their pollen a lot earlier than normal.
And of course, as all the holidays start to get here, you think about travel, Christmas, New Year's, and I think you have some numbers as far as TSA and flights and everything go to.
Yeah, so my family's traveling for the holidays. I think you're staying put, so no air travel for you, right?
This year.
So we'll be traveling the week after Christmas, and people always get nervous and worried if they're traveling for Christmas. And I'm here to calm your nerves, because looking at some statistics that the TSA puts out, the men and women who check us through security, over the past 12 months, the 15 busiest days, all but one of them are in the summertime.
Okay.
So, number 2, the second busiest day in the past 12 months was the Sunday after Thanksgiving, which I think we all know is typically one of, if not the busiest days. But none of the other top 15 busiest days happen in December or January. Looking down the list, July, May, July, August, June. There's one in October, June, August. So most of our busy travel days are in the summer when everyone's going on summer vacation. The one exception is the Sunday after Thanksgiving. My point is, as we head into December, while it's not going to be nobody in the TSA line, the lines are much busier when you travel over Thanksgiving and when you travel over the summer. The busiest day for RDU was set, the busiest day on record for them was set in May of 2024. So I know there are going to be extra people around the holidays of Christmas and New Year's, but it's not going to be as busy as what we see in the summer and what we see the Sunday after Thanksgiving. Now, hopefully I just didn't jinx it all. I know recently
now it's going to be so crowded.
Yeah, we had an 18-wheeler get lodged under the tunnel, under the runway over at RDU, and that made traffic a mess. So hopefully I didn't do anything to jinx that. But I'm not the kind of guy that likes to get to the airport 2 hours early. I'm not doing that, even if it's for an international flight. I'm a solid 60 minutes early kind of guy, and hopefully I don't get burned on that coming up this holiday season.
Now, have you ever cut it kind of close as far as you barely made it to the gate just in time?
Yeah, like I said, one of my biggest pet peeves is getting to the airport way too early. There have been 2 times in my life, one was for my friend's wedding, that we were running to the gate to make our flight. I've never missed it, but there have been 2 times in my life that you run. And think about it, you sprint through the airport, right, carrying a bag, and then you immediately have to get down and sit down for 2 hours or whatever. All the lactic acid build. I do not recommend it, but again, I don't like getting to the airport early.
Do what you have to do. Yeah, and of course, as we head towards the coldest months, that means that winter is on the way too. It started on December 21st at 10:03 officially. That was the winter solstice when the sun was directly over the Tropic of Capricorn. That means that was the shortest day locally, seeing just over 9 hours of daylight here for us in central North Carolina. As far as the rest of the year goes, seeing longer or later sunsets towards 2026.
Yeah, so winter solstice signifies a couple things. The day after that, our days start to get longer. It's a very slow process. So we have the shortest day of the year on the winter solstice. Ironically, and this is counterintuitive, if you think back to 8th grade earth science class, the sun is closer to our planet on the winter solstice, but the angle is of which it doesn't allow our atmosphere to warm up. Sun is farther away in the middle of summer, but the angle is directly over the northern hemisphere, which is why it is hotter. And it is summer in the southern hemisphere. So if you're looking to get away from the cold, going south of the equator is the way to go this time of year.
Yeah, you always think about Christmas being so cold and the chances of snow in the United States, but the southern hemisphere is actually just starting their warmest months of the year.
Yeah, they're not getting any snow in December, January, and February. That's usually for us. And remember, we've already had our earliest sunset. We don't have our latest sunrise until January.
That's one of the things that's kind of hard to keep track of, is as far as, yes, the sunsets are getting later in the day, but still the daylight is getting shorter because the sunrise is also getting later, so a little less in the way of daylight.
Yeah, and if you think about it, the sun is up for longer in the summer, and it's also higher up in the sky, but it's more directly over us. That's why it's always important to put on your sunblock in the summer. Not that you shouldn't in the winter, but the sun angle is a little different, and it's lower in the horizon, and it's above the horizon for a shorter amount of time, and that's part of the reason why our days are shorter.
And that's one of the reasons, too, if you've noticed that the sun's in your eyes a lot this time of the year, because even when it's at its highest point in the sky during the late fall and early winter, it is still kind of low on the horizon, so still kind of towards your eyesight, too. Yeah,
that's an excellent point. Even though it's not hot usually in the winter, that sun's lower for longer and more in your eyes. Didn't think about that. I needed those sunglasses a couple times this week.
And we kind of talked about as far as the cold weather goes in central North Carolina and the sunrise and sunset times here, 5:01 p.m. being the earliest it ever sets here in Raleigh, and it gets later and later as time goes on, and of course the shorter the days, usually the colder the days too. The coldest it's ever been at RDU is -9 degrees back on January 21st, 1985, just one day after it was -3 on January 20th, -2 on Valentine's Day in 1899, and -1 back in 1977.
Yeah, those are the only 4 times in our recorded history that we've been below zero in the triangle. And so far this season, we had a morning start at 14 above, and everyone thought the world was ending. I mean, that was the coldest temperature we've had in 3 years. But can you imagine being 20 to 25 degrees colder than that 14? That's what they were dealing with at 9. Actually, no, it'd be 30 to 35 degrees colder. So,
and you think about the wind chill too, probably a lot worse than that as well.
Yeah, and we were looking at some of the temperatures in Canada and Alaska when we had 14 earlier this month, and they were approaching -40 on the thermometer. And that's probably a -50 or 60 wind chill. I can't even imagine. That 14, that 9 in Siler City from a couple weeks ago.
Single
again,
digits up.
Yeah, that was the coldest in 3 years. But yeah, that's 20 degrees colder than that is our coldest temperature ever. Just absolutely outrageous to think of.
And when it gets cold outside, one of the best things to do as far as warming your internal body temperature is to drink a warm drink. Coffeeness just came out with a recent study. Apparently, they've been doing this since 2008. I hadn't heard about it until this year, but the #1 drink across the United States, apparently, according to 13 states, is hot chocolate. No surprise there. Apple cider is the second most favorite drink, 11 states including North Carolina, and 3 tied with 11 is the espresso martini.
Interesting. So that makes sense for North Carolina. I'm thinking this through because of all the apple orchards we have in the western part of the state. But I don't know. I'm a hot chocolate guy. Apples, apple juice is okay. You warm it up. I think that's kind of strange, but my wife made a huge pot of hot chocolate Thanksgiving. It was a little chilly out, so I'm a hot chocolate guy, although I wouldn't turn down an espresso martini. What's your go-to?
I like hot chocolate probably is my go-to as far as warm drinks during the winter. I like a good apple cider too, but I haven't had either one in quite a while, so I probably need to break that out again this winter season.
Are you a marshmallows in your hot chocolate guy, or
every once in a while? I kind of take it as it is. So either way, add marshmallows, don't add marshmallows. It's kind of good either way to me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us were drinking that a few weeks ago when it was 14 degrees.
Mm-hmm. And here's a closer look in case you couldn't see those numbers there. 11 states say apple cider, as is the case in North Carolina. So we'll see how often we have to drink those drinks this year.
Yeah, we're not going to need it if we start the year off at 80 degrees like we did back in 2022.
And of course, as we end out one year, we're reflecting back on the weather that we saw in 2025. Also taking a look at what the weather might bring in 2026. That's coming up after this short break.
On the radar with the CBS 17 Storm Team. On the radar with the CBS 17 Storm Team.
Welcome back to this episode of On the Radar, talking a lot about the winter, the end of the year, and taking a look back at exactly what happened in 2025. The coldest day or coldest morning so far was just a week or two ago, seeing 14 degrees on the 15th. The hottest day, we hit 100 degrees on the 23rd and 24th of June. The wettest day, nearly 4 inches back in August, and 2.3 inches of snow back in February.
Yeah, I think for me, that's the biggest story because we went so long without snow. I mean, almost 3 years. And then finally, January and February, we got some snow. Kids got some snow days. I mean, that's rare for us to have a winter without any snow. And so to finally get some snow, I think that's the big story. And, Chantal's a big story and all the rain it brought. But, I always have to remind myself when we have these really cold stretches, at least we're not mowing the grass like we have to do in the summer, and there are no mosquitoes when it's 14 degrees.
And my wife and I just bought a new house that has a bigger yard, so that is going to be a thing I had to think about heading towards the spring.
Yeah. Grass grows when it's 100. It does not grow when it's 14.
Does. And as far as this year's recap go, Ross Whitley has a look back at exactly what this year brought across central North Carolina.
'Twas the start of the year in Raleigh, skies crisp and bright. We hoped for a mild winter, but winter took flight. Snow fell in January and again in February's hold. With wintry mix, slick roads, the cold was quite bold. In early March, a broad system spun storms near and far. A tornado threat to the south and a blizzard to the north sent people to the bar. Severe weather prep week taught us readiness and care for hail, wind, and thunder. Lightning tore through the air. Come March, winds and low humidity sparked wildfires flame. Spring felt warm and dry for days, and pollen soared in the name. Then summer arrived, steaming. July set record highs. Raleigh roasted through the heat and the nights that barely said goodbye. By midsummer, storms moved in with thunder, flash flooding alarms. Heavy rain storms tested lives and farms. Tropical storm Chantal brought flooding rains that soaked the ground. Water rose so rapidly, rescues circled around. Throughout all the rainfall extremes showed us how fierce the year. Intense downpours reminded us that storms are something to revere. As autumn drew cooler days, October fell near average. Raleigh temperatures kept in time, neither too warm nor savage. By year's end, we chased trends that records helped to define. 2025 stood among the warmest years on Raleigh's climate line. So here's to the year of weather, from snow to blaze to wave, of sunny days and stormy nights, the brave seasons we all brave. We'll watch for what 2026 brings: rain, sunshine, wind, and more, because weather in Raleigh keeps life never a bore. I'm meteorologist Ross Whitley with the Weather Year in Review. Now back to you.
Little holiday twist.
Yeah, you think about all that happened this year, you kind of forget about some of those events.
Yeah, we were busy, to say the least. Chantal, unfortunately, I think our biggest event of the season, of the year. And we got to remember, Chantal wasn't even a hurricane when it came through. Yeah,
and that was the only tropical system to actually make landfall, not just in North Carolina, but anywhere across the country.
Yeah, what a strange tropical year it was. I mean, we had all those massive Cat 5s, but thankfully none of them came to the United States.
So we took a look back as far as the year across central North Carolina. Now a little look forward as far as what we're expecting heading towards January and February. The temperature outlook calls for a warmer than average pattern setting up across the southeast.
Yeah, remember, most of the next couple months, our average high temperatures are in the 50s. So the Climate Prediction Center is saying December, January, and February, we are expecting more days than not to be above that.
Yeah, we're still going to have some cold days kind of scattered in, but overall kind of a warmer than average period. And the opposite as far as rainfall goes for the chances of a wetter than average precipitation across the southeast, seeing a drier than average pattern setting up over that same span.
Yeah, remember, most of our area is still in a drought, so we expect that drought to continue. And while it won't be completely dry all the time, there'll be more dry days than not. But remember, we've seen some active jet streams. We've seen an active storm pattern, so it just takes a shot of cold air combined with a storm system coming through to give us that chance of snow. But it looks like warmer and drier here in central North Carolina for the next couple months.
Yeah, we always say it only takes that one, but as far as here in our area, hopefully for us snow lovers, we get at least one more event before the season comes to an end.
Yeah, at this point, 0.1 inches is what we've had so far, and an average winter for us, we get about 5. So we've got a ways to go. We'll see if we get there.
Yeah, and of course, looking at the super sunsets for the year, there were quite a number of them across the region, also across the state too.
Yeah, we had some great pictures of sunset and sunrises sent in by our viewers from really all over the world. I show these every night at 11 o'clock. Here is a batch to wrap up the year. We'll start up in Virginia Beach, the Morton family right there on the water. That's a beautiful sunset. Next up, we're going to go to the other side of the country, out into the Pacific. Teresa was in Maui, captured this super sunset. Let's come back home to Lake Lockmere in Cary. That's a beautiful shot from Bud Parker. And we'll go down to the Sandhills. Bud Lafferty in Fayetteville has a super sunset. This was from back in November. And we'll finish up down near Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. This is Cherry Grove, and this is Jim's view of his super sunset. As always, if you've got a great shot, drop me an email to sendit@cbs17.com. Not only do we show them here on the radar, but every night on TV on CBS 17 News at 11.
And if you have any great ideas for what we should do in 2026, you can email us at weather@cbs17.com. Of course, thanks for watching so far this year. And as we head towards 2026, hopefully you join us once again in the new year. So thanks for watching, and see you next year.
On the radar with the CBS 17 Storm Team.